Hey everybody, welcome to Shower Door Help. Today I want to go over how to measure for a shower enclosure. Uh, in your case, I guess you'd be sending this drawing into a manufacturer. But yeah, I just want to kind of go over the basics on it, and I hope this helps out a lot. First thing I do when I get to the job, I'll look at the shower and I'll lay out the shower in my drawing. I always like to put the door in the front of the drawing and then the return panel, as you can see there, going back at a 90. I'll represent that way. I just like to keep that consistent, so I have the door in the front and all the other panels returning. So there you go. All right, so I'm going to try to do the best job I can here explaining to you how I would go about doing a drawing if I was just going to send the drawing to the glass manufacturer and have them actually fabricate the glass and do all the deductions. Personally, I've been doing this for a long time, so I do all my deductions myself. And for example, I will make a drawing like this, put all my dimensions on there, and send that. To get back to what I'm trying to say here, when you're going to do your drawing to send into a manufacturer to do the deductions for you, what you would do here is, let's say I want to go 2 inches in from the edge of the shower, so I would make an X at 2 inches in from the edge of the shower, and I'd make it so that I put the X right there. So this X is 2 inches from this edge and 2 inches from this edge. And then what I would do is measure from here to the wall, and in the case you would, in the shower that I'm illustrating for you, that 47 3/4 would be this elevation. And then from here to here, that was 34 3/4 from what I remember. So basically 26 for the door, 8 1/2 for the panel. So, and then there's an 1/8 of an inch gap there, an 1/8 of an inch gap there. But you would only give the outside dimensions you would give the dimensions, this dimension 34 3/4 and 47 3/4. Basically, this is a top-down view of the curb, if you hadn't figured that out. So in any case, that's the way you probably should start getting your measurements. And then what you would do is transfer it to a drawing like I had in the walkthrough of the shower measure. So I'll go ahead and now that I got my drawing made up, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up my laser level to check the levelness of the curb to see what the out condition of the curb is. You can see right there, that's a self-leveling laser. So I just set it on the curb or on the countertop there, and it will self-level. So now what I do is I'm taking a measurement here, which ended up being 32 1/8, and then I take a measurement here, which ended up being 32. So what does that tell me? Well, since the number on the left side is bigger than the number on the right side, that means that side of the curb is lower than the right side, so it's lower by 1/8 of an inch. And so I'll go ahead and I'll write that down on my sheet, and then I'll check the other elevation, which is the return elevation, and I'll check there. That ends up being 32 1/8 as well. So, and then the corner I know is 32, so that side is dropped by 1/8 of an inch. The thing is with this material they're using here, the slate's not a very flat tile, so there's a lot of inconsistencies in it. So just taking a measurement from 2 points is kind of tough to tell exactly what's going on. So it's a good idea to have a 6-foot level, throw down on the curb to double check your laser and see, and yeah, that looks about right. And then again, on the other elevation, checking that, it looks about right. It's a little bit more level than my laser showing, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark that down, and we'll stick with that. All right, so here what I'm doing, I'm setting my laser level up to check for plumb. Plumb is vertical surfaces are called plumb horizontals are called level. So just so you know that. Keep the language consistent here, but what I'll do is the same as I did with the curb, but I'll do it on the vertical surface. So I'll check the bottom dimension here. I'll check the top dimension, which is hard to do because it's really hard to film this with a camera on my phone. So in any case, I check the top, I get my condition, I go ahead and I'll double check it with my level. So and then what I do is I set the level up so that the bubbles are in the middle of the level there. So you see that bubble's in there. That level is plumb. So I can look down that level and see how the wall is out. So the actual wall kicks out or kicks out at the top, or same kicks in at the bottom. You see how that is a bigger gap at the bottom than it is at the top. So I confirmed that my laser level that I measured when I measured that is consistent with my 6-foot level. So yeah, let me go ahead. So if you take a look at my drawing here, you see on the return panel on the very right side of the enclosure, that wall, I wrote down 3/8 and I put an arrow pointing that direction. That tells me that the wall kicks in at the bottom 3/8 of an inch, or in other words, kicks out at the top 3/8 of an inch. So normally what I would do is I would cut the glass relative to that out condition so that the glass will actually fit against the wall perfectly straight. So yeah, and if you take a look over on the left side of the drawing, I also did that wall, and you can see that the top leans back 3/4 of an inch, and just so happens that that door, when I did order it, it was 26 even at the bottom and 26 3/4 at the top. So the top of the door is 3/4 of an inch bigger than the bottom of the door. That way the door will line up flat with the wall in this situation here. So that's why you got to get your plumb dimensions. You got to understand that so you can order your glass relative for that, and then also your level dimensions, so you can order the glass if you have to and compensate for that. So what you got here, this is a drawing I made that I would send to the glass supplier to fabricate the glass for me. If they were the ones doing all the deductions, I would send them this information here. We kind of walked through before the measuring process on what I was doing here, but I kind of just want to go over this to kind of illustrate what that information will look like on the paper itself. So the overall height of this enclosure, they want it to be 69 inches overall. They want the door to be 26 inches wide. Okay. So what I did is when I did all my measurements, I took my center line dimensions for the curb here, and from here to here, got 34 3/4. There on the front elevation, the return elevation is 47 3/4. So, and then I went and checked my levelness of the curb all the way around. I knew that this the left side here is 1/8 of an inch down from this point here, and then this over here is 1/8 of an inch down from that point as well. So we knew that we looked at this wall both with the laser level and the 6-foot level, and we could tell that the wall kicked in 3/8 of an inch at the bottom here, for example. And then here, when we threw our level up there, same deal. We could tell that the wall is actually leaning this way 3/4 of an inch. So I illustrated that here in this drawing. So when we send this off to the fabricator, they're going to go ahead and make all their deductions. They're going to take that 1/8 of an inch off here, 1/8 of an inch off here, and then they're going to figure out exactly how far that glass needs to be from this point, which is 26 1/4, because you got an eighth, quarter, 26, and then they would know what this size a piece of glass needs to be this 34 3/4. That makes sense. Same over here. This is going to be 47 3/4. They're going to take 1/8 of an inch off if you're using channel. They wouldn't take any off if you're just going to use clamps and butt it flat against the wall. And so this bottom would be 47 3/4. The top of the glass would be what? What's 3/8 away from 3/4 is 3/8. So this top would be 47 3/8. Ranger's wanting to go out and play with his deer friends. Anyway, so that's what this piece of glass would look like, and then on this, they would do this for the door. Of course, this panel here would be the same at the top and the bottom. There's no out condition on this panel, but the door would be 3/4 of an inch bigger at the top than it is at the bottom. So just for illustration, you can see that's what the door would look like at the manufacturer. But they would plug all this information into a CAD system they have, and it would basically do all these deductions for you, and so you don't have to worry about that. I like to do the deductions myself because I know how I'm going to install this thing, and I can kind of fudge things a certain way depending on how I want to install the shower, or like in this case, depending on the condition of the tile. So if it's like a slate tile, it's not very flat, so you got to kind of compensate a little bit more than you would if the wall were perfectly flat. So I take that into consideration, where a computer is just a computer and it does what it does. Typically it errs on the side of making things or making gaps bigger to compensate for those walls that aren't so flat and whatnot. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I'll go ahead and move along here. So in conclusion here, I went over basically, well, let me go the backstory for this job. I installed this shower door probably, gosh, maybe 8-9 years ago probably. And then in the meantime, I guess the tile leaked and it got underneath of the structure underneath of the tile. So all the tile started cracking and it was a pretty big mess. So anyway, I went out and I uninstalled that shower door. And then the homeowner fixed everything. And then I went back out, and he actually did a really good job because he made the opening basically what it was from the get-go. So the glass was set up for success. And so what I did is I went ahead and I measured everything out to determine if it was the same as it was before, and if the glass that I had was going to work for this second install. Because sometimes when you redo tile, you make an opening that's not the same size, so things don't fit. But in any case, my experience, I just wanted to explain to you my experience in reinstalling this shower and dealing with this slate tile. The wall that was out of plumb, 3/4 of an inch for the door, where the door was going to hinge off of, that wall actually had a pretty big hump in it from the slate tile not being flat. So there was a high point roughly like right here in between the two hinges, right in between the two hinges on that wall. So that hump forced the door over this way. So that's why it's important to put a level on the wall, a flat edge level, so you can find the humps and then get your mean dimension that you want. And when you're laying it out and you're going to install it, you kind of want to know that there's a hump here, because if your door is only 26 inches and you allowed 1/8 on either side of the door, that hump pushes the door, let's say, over 1/4 of an inch. You're not going to have enough room to fit the door. The door is going to hit this panel over here, because you're going to lose that extra fudge gap that you have on either side of the door, because this high point's pushing you this way. So anyway, that was one thing I had to deal with in that install. So that's one thing to look out for. It's just kind of a pro tip. I've done a bunch of these, and that can be a problem when you go to install them, because not every surface is perfect. So anyway, I just want to kind of give you that little bit of feedback as a tip, but it may help you too when you're measuring it, so that you can kind of say, oh, that may be an issue, so maybe I need to show in my drawing, if your manufacturer or whoever you're sending your drawing to would be able to compensate for that. So anyway, just wanted, in conclusion, I guess, I hope this makes sense. I mean, it's like one of those things, I can't remember the mental condition they call it or whatever, but they did an experiment where people were like, would hum a tune, and other people would say, would try to guess this song or tune that you're actually humming. And the people that were listening to it didn't understand it, couldn't figure it out. But in your mind, when you're humming it, it sounds perfectly, it makes perfect sense because you understand what you're trying to do. So I hope I didn't do that. I hope my the tune I was humming in this video makes sense to you, and that I didn't fall for that cognitive dissonance of knowing what I'm saying and thinking that I'm saying it perfectly. So anyway, if in the video there's anything that you don't understand, go ahead and just leave a comment down below. I plan on doing another one of these because like a wall-to-wall measure. Corner measures are pretty easy because you can kind of move it in and out of the curb depending on how the glass comes in or whatever you're going to need. But when you're going from but when you're going from wall to wall, it can be kind of tough because you can run out of room to make your glass fit. And if you have, for example, a bow on either side, you can order, your glass may be too small or too big to fit in that opening. Anyway, I better let Ranger out because his dear friends are out there. Anyway, have a good one.